Joining us now is Republican strategist and the chairman of the Fort Bend County Republican Party in Texas, Bobby Eberle, along with Democratic strategist and civil rights attorney Robert Patillo. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Bobby, I'm going to start with you. A lot of conservatives are very critical of President Trump's, most favored nation executive order that he passed today on prescription drugs, saying that this is not the capital markets at work, this is government price fixing. Kind of what do you say to that criticism, and does the government need to take a role here in lowering prescription drugs for Americans?
Well, I think the government does need to take a leading role here, and it depends on how they implement it. Yes, I've heard the criticism, and I can understand it. You know, basic economics 101 says if you do price controls, you're going to lead to shortages and other economic outcomes that are not good. But in this case, he's not really capping a price. He's recommending a buying price. It's not like the government's not coming into New York and saying you can only charge this much for rent. No, this is more on the side of the people saying we're only going to pay this much for rent. We're not going to deal with you if you don't do prices that are affordable and put us in line with other countries. And to me, this is Trump coming in and implementing the art of the deal. He's seeing what other prices, basically the pharmaceutical companies are lowballing other countries to get in those markets, and they're funding it on the back end off the American people. That fundamentally is wrong, and this is a step in the right direction.
Rob, I mean, do you feel like Democrats in Congress can support President Trump in this area? We know Ro Khanna came out this morning and said that he'd like to codify this executive order that President Trump had today. We know that Bernie Sanders has been a longtime advocate of using most favored nation status to lower the cost of prescription drugs. It's been batted about for decades, but no president has actually enforced it.
Yeah, and every single time that a Democratic president suggested exactly this, they called it socialism. This is socialism. And I'm okay with that. I think this is a good idea. But I just think Republicans have to admit that President Trump is implementing socialist policies, the same ones that he campaigned against. And when we're talking about these multinational prescription drug companies, they've been price gouging the American people for decades. And the Republicans have promised us their own comprehensive health care plan since 1993, and we are still waiting on it 30 plus years later. What President Trump is doing is taking good ideas from the Democratic Party, from the left wing of the Democratic Party, from the Bernie Sanders wing of the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. And if he's willing to do that on this issue, I think you can find broad bipartisan support for codifying this into law. But let's just say what it is and call a spade, as we say. This is socialism.
You know what? You're not wrong, and that is the criticism. A lot of conservatives are saying that this is price fixing and it is a socialist. But globally, there are a lot of countries who have socialized medicine, and they're getting a lower cost for the same exact drugs than Americans are paying with private insurance. But Bobby, I want to kind of
and that's what I
go
would
ahead,
add
Bobby,
to
if
it
you
too. Again, this is a fairness deal. It's not socialized medicine. The government, in addition to private people buying prescription drugs, the government also buys these and funds, as you saw during COVID. A massive amount of money goes to these pharmaceutical companies. So if the U.S. government says, hey, you're charging another country a lower price, we should get that price too. That's called negotiation. That's called looking for a fair price in a market. So I would not call it socialized medicine at all. I'd call this putting America first and looking for a deal that helps the American people in one of the biggest, I learned today that the biggest cause of bankruptcy in families is paying for healthcare costs and paying for prescription drugs when you have catastrophic medical conditions. So to ease that burden on working families is a huge plus for America.
Bobby, I'm going to stick with you for a second. Donald Trump today defended the prospect of Qatar gifting him a plane to use as Air Force One. This is what he wrote on Truth Social. So the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Dems are world-class losers, MAGA. What's your take on this? I mean, it has been floated that Qatar's not exactly our ally, and this could be somewhat of a Trojan horse.
Yeah, this one, I don't know. Robert and I may agree on this one. I'll have to wait and see what he says. But, you know, when you look at the numbers, what President Trump is saying is absolutely true. I mean, why pay some $400 million, which apparently this plane is worth when you configure it to Air Force One, when it can be a gift to the Department of Defense? On the other hand, if the shoe were on the other foot and we were getting this plane for Joe Biden and he's saying it's all transparent and good, you know that the Democrats and the media would be freaking out. So I can see, or the conservatives would be freaking out. So I can see the argument right there. I mean, the best case scenario would be for Boeing to deliver the planes that they should have delivered years ago. Instead, we have cost overruns and budgets going like crazy and delays. Let them deliver these planes that we've already allocated and maybe keep Qatar out of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the biggest problem with this story is Boeing, and there hasn't been much attention paid to Boeing, but Boeing's sole purpose is to manufacture planes and have them be able to lift off and to take off as well as land, and they've been having problems with that recently. But Rob, what's your take on this story, and how do you think this is going to end up?
Well, this is a constitutional crisis, but we have those every week now, so I guess it doesn't matter. But last week, Eric and Don Jr. were in Qatar. And what were they doing there? They were signing a $5.5 billion deal. $5.5 billion deal to develop Trump properties in Qatar. And then literally less than 24 hours later, it was announced that Qatar was giving President Donald Trump a $400 million bribe. It's convenient how that works. And then let's think about it also. The Doha agreement that where President Trump surrendered to the Taliban on the Afghan withdrawal also took place in Doha, Qatar. And also, the leadership for Hamas does not live in Gaza, they live in Qatar. So if there's a way that you want to funnel money to the United States president in order to influence U.S. policy within the region and turn Qatar into a political powerhouse within the Gulf nations, this is how you do it. So we can pretend that this is a Boeing issue, because I remind people, Air Force One and Air Force Twos are not 747s. They are military aircraft that are skimmed as commercial aircraft. They can do things that a regular private jet can't do. They can go speeds. They have stealth detection. They have emergency equipment. It will probably take $1 billion just to retrofit this Qatari private jet into Air Force One to meet security requirements that are necessary to protect the U.S. president. Imagine us saying we're going to replace the Beast, the presidential limo that is a literally military vehicle that looks like a Cadillac, and we're just going to take a car from China and say that's going to be the president's new limo. That's just as insane. So we can pretend that this isn't a bribe, but I want someone to explain why you signed a $5.5 billion deal and then the next day accept a $400 million airplane from the same country.
Well, you know, Hunter Biden was signing a lot of million-dollar deals when his father was vice president of the United States and selling a lot of artwork while his dad was president of the United States. But listen, Rob, we've got to go. We've got to go. However, there's a lot to be worked out yet with this plane. There's been a lot of criticism coming from the right on the president of the United States. We don't know what's going to happen to this story, but I wouldn't call it a constitutional crisis quite yet. Yeah, Bobby Eberle, Rob Patillo, thank you so much for joining me today.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.